Tara will be joining us. She's just going to be a few minutes late. So we'll go ahead and get started. Do I hear a motion to, actually, first, welcome everyone to the Hadley Public Schools School Committee meeting. This is the April 2026 monthly meeting, and we're excited to have our public budget presentation. Do I have a motion to call this meeting to order?
So moved.
Thank you, Christine.
Seconded.
Thank you, Ethan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Terrific. Annie, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No, there are none.
Okay, great. We'll move right into public comment. If you're a member of the public and would like to make a comment, please raise your digital hand and we will unmute you. Okay, seeing none, let's proceed with the agenda. The first item is the public hearing of the fiscal year 27 budget to be delivered by Annie McKenzie and Chris Desjardins. Annie and Chris?
Yes, let me just share my screen and then I'll get it going.
Okay, terrific.
There we are, share. And let's do a slideshow view. Okay, so this evening we're presenting to you the Hadley Schools fiscal year 27 budget. And much of the information is information that you have seen. We've talked about the budget on February 23rd, on March 23rd at our school committee meetings. We presented this to the finance committee, and also the select board has seen many of our slides from our previous meetings. So here our district vision is we are focused on ensuring that we provide rigorous learning, that we focus on strong relationships and shared responsibility for every student's success. And our priorities or our strategic investments in this budget continue to be those program staff and systems that drive student success and future readiness. Those include early college and career pathways, advanced coursework like Project Lead the Way, ensuring that we competitively compensate our employees, that we develop the workforce in technology, data systems, and enrichment and extracurriculars. I'm going to thank you, Humira. And now, there we are. So we know, and this evening the school committee will vote on the total level services budget amount. We know that the town right now is looking to put an override, or I think two options for an override, to the voters at annual town meeting next week, and then also at a ballot on June 2nd. I'll verify that date for you. So tonight what the school committee will do is vote the entire budget. We recognize, and I spoke with legal about this, that you're looking at a shortfall. Once we know what the town decides local contribution will be, and we'll know that after annual town meeting and the ballot vote, we will come back with a budget that is completely balanced in June. Now you're just voting on the overall amount. We know what's driving this shortfall, and that is the decrease in local contribution. That is really the result of unprecedented and unforeseen spikes in healthcare insurance. Here we are. Oh, that's a little irritating. Okay. So one thing that I want to make sure you saw is that, apologies there.
No worries.
One thing that we're noticing, and again, I want to point out that the town, clearly in the conversations that I've had with FinCom, with all of the voters and parents and community members who've shown up at meetings, and with our select board, that the town remains committed to the schools. But what you see is that local contribution has decreased, I would say significantly. In fiscal year 25, local contribution comprised 82% of our total revenues. You saw all the revenues on the previous slide. And in fiscal year 27, without an override, you're looking at local contribution falling to 74% of total revenues. Again, what's driving this primarily is the increase in health insurance costs. Overall, our expenses, you can see that the most significant increase is in staffing or professional salaries. Professional salaries includes all teachers, counselors, administrators, all salaries, except, as you can see, clerical salaries would be admin support, other salaries, custodial, food service, So you can see that salary lines are the ones that have increased the most. No one person received a 5.61% increase. There are, in all of these lines, there are folks who may receive a step and a COLA. In some cases, for teacher contracts, for example, an educator may receive what's called a lane change if they acquire an additional degree. And so there wasn't a COLA of 5.61%. I just want to make that really clear. But the primary drivers in increases to expenses are human beings. We're a human-centric industry and profession. Where we tried to then balance those increases are in places like contracted services. I really want to thank Chris Desjardins, and I also want to thank our tech director, Steve Bigda, who have worked so hard to review every contract that we have, whether it is telecommunications, technology contracts, all of our contracts, to see where we can consolidate and save money. They've done a great job of that. In materials and supplies, one of the things that we've been able to do, because as you know, we've been very successful in securing grants this year, is purchase a lot of supplies and materials using grant funds, which has helped us with the budget. Our district enrollment. And just so you know, in our budget book, which is also linked to the agenda, it's available for public review in the superintendent's office, and it's available online on our website. So you can find much more detailed information about district enrollment. But you can see that we are not back to where we were after FY20, but certainly coming up from FY23, which is good to see. One of the questions that comes up, and it's a good question, is if you have decreasing enrollment, wouldn't you see a corresponding decrease in staff? And you'll see at a later slide that we haven't had a tremendous uptick in staff in the district, but there isn't, and I pointed this out, this is an excellent question that one of our appointed officials asked, like, essentially, why don't we see that corresponding decrease? Because in schools, staffing doesn't automatically correlate with the number of students. It correlates more closely with the needs of the students in the class, the program, or the building. So you can see, and we've talked about this, that students who qualify as high needs, meaning that they qualify under low income, students with disabilities, and or students whose first language is not English, we've seen a significant increase in the percentage of students, in the number of students as a percentage of the student body. But despite that, and this was asked at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, despite that, our teacher FTEs pre-COVID, there was some question about, as a lot of municipalities saw that they had really kind of bulked up staff when COVID funding came into the picture. And as you know, in the school department, we really tried to use COVID funding because it was a non-recurring funding source. So we used that for things like air filters. We used it for capital. We gave money back to the town because the town supported us during COVID. What we didn't do was use one-time funding for recurring operating expenses. So you see the teachers we had pre-COVID, we had 50 FTEs of teacher FTEs. That includes guidance counselors and a unit A member. And in this year, we have 50.8. So that's pretty level. We have seen an increase in educational support professionals, but we also have started the NEST program. So we have some specialized programs. And in some of these programs, students do have one-to-ones. We've talked a lot about this. Our school choice trends continue to be really strong. I'm going to pause here and say I really appreciate, I know how hard the elected and appointed officials in Hadley are working to try to determine how we can invest in the town in a way that is not just untenable for the voter and the taxpayer. And I would say that one thing we certainly want to protect is our ability to attract and retain students through school choice. So as you know, we now have 146 students choicing in, that's this year. That doesn't include applications for next year. And we have 34 students choicing out. And choice out, which can happen when schools are underfunded or programs are eliminated, choice out is a bill that's paid on the town side. So again, I'll say I appreciate all the hard work that people are doing to try to be very strategic in moving the entire town forward in a way that is logical and manageable for taxpayers. And this slide is a recycled slide, but this drives that point home, right? That when we are doing taking care of or supporting programs and opportunities for students, it reduces liability on the town side. So we had an expected charter tuition estimate, what the town planned for in fiscal year 26, of roughly $822,000. But because we saw a decrease in the number of students going to charter schools, the town's actual charter bill will probably be closer to $600,000. So they're looking at a cost avoidance of $221,000 in this fiscal year. But this doesn't happen without sustained and strategic investment in programs and opportunities for students. We talk about this a lot. So there's 3 ways out, right? There's choice out, there's charter, and there's career and technical education. And there's 1 way in. And in FY19, 94 students were coming into the district and 141 were exiting the district. And now in fiscal year 26, we have 146 students coming into the district and 97 by all 3 paths exiting the district. I'm going to move my beeswax over here. So we've talked about this and folks in town are keenly aware of it. And I appreciate the fact that Select Board and FinCom and people I talk to recognize this. They don't dispute this, that education as a percentage of total town expenditures has decreased by about 10% since fiscal year 18. And they recognize that. And again, that's why I think they're committed to trying to find a path forward that continues to support public services. And you can see how this compares to other towns. It looks slightly different, but this is information that's in your budget book that we've looked at over the years and have been looking at for the past few months. This is a new slide. I think folks have understandably and logically asked, well, if healthcare is really driving this fiscal crisis that the town is facing right now, should we be doing something different with healthcare? Is the town paying a percentage that's really out of line with what neighboring towns are paying in terms of town and employee share? And what you're looking at here, and all of these, this is the split for an HMO. Now in Hadley, town employees have the option of an HMO only. They don't have a PPO option. Most of these communities also have a PPO option. In PPOs, the town pays slightly less because it's a more expensive option. So this is comparing HMO options to HMO options. And as you can see, Hadley is second from the bottom in Hampshire County. And I say that I am grateful for my compensation and for my benefits from the town. This is really designed just to answer the question, are we out of line with what's happening? And I would argue that no, the town certainly is not paying a share of health insurance that is out of line with what's happening. As a matter of fact, again, it's quite low by comparison. And we always like to remind the town that we feel as though we have an obligation to provide a return on investment. I take very seriously the fact that the town does support its schools. It does provide additional money above required net school spending. And I'm grateful for that. I know our students are and our faculty is as well. And as I said, we try to deliver on that. So we know Hadley Elementary School has been a Project Lead the Way School of Distinction for 3 consecutive years. And I just submitted the application for the 4th consecutive year. And we had one of 8 elementary teachers recognized nationally as a Project Lead the Way Outstanding Teacher last year. We lead the county in advanced coursework completion, and there's great research, which in previous budget presentations and in the budget book, you can find links to the research that shows the improvement in outcomes for students in terms of their earnings, degree completion, multiple outcomes for students who successfully complete advanced coursework. We lead in graduates attending higher education in Hampshire County. And our earnings, and for folks, a lot of folks, because this was a new slide this year, and they were interested in this, and I even heard from people in the public, And they really wanted to look at these data. And so in the budget book, which I'll say again, is available on the school department website, is linked into the agenda if the public wants to access it that way. On page 26, you can see each one of the towns, communities in Hampshire County, and you can see their earnings by year of graduation, where we fall and where other districts fall. And so we are grateful for the investment that the town continues to make in its schools. We, I would say humbly ask, but I would actually kind of say like with a bit of pride, ask that those investments continue. And we will continue to deliver a return on those investments. We are facing a significant challenge in fiscal year 27, and a challenge that really will require an override. And I know that FinCom has recommended, Finance Committee has recommended an override. Select Board has agreed with that, and a supplemental. So these things will be presented to voters at annual town meeting, which I believe is next Thursday, May 7th, and then presented on a ballot on June 2nd. It is really important that people understand that it requires 2 steps. So if you show up for one, it's like showing up for none. It requires 2 steps, both annual town meeting and the ballot. Tonight, we're asking, certainly I can answer any questions, as can Chris, but we are asking that the school committee vote to approve a fiscal year 27 budget, total budget of $10,368,791.22. I suppose I could have rounded that, but oh well. That I will blame on Chris, because he is so precise and so detailed. There is not an Excel formula that he would allow to get away with sloppy rounding. So that is what we're asking for, an approval of a total budget, and we're happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Annie. I appreciate the slides, the presentation, very thorough and clear. And yes, we have seen this for the last several months. And thank you so much for all the investment of time that you and Chris have put in making it clear for us throughout that period of time, and also for the Finance Committee and the Select Board. I haven't been physically in the meetings, but I've watched every single live stream and Zoom, and I really appreciate that. Whatever, like last minute or quick on the spot question that's asked, you're there getting the data. You might not have it in hand, but within minutes you're like getting that back. So I want to thank you for being as thorough as you have been. I'm gonna open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments on the presentation itself before I follow up with my own.
And I will just say to folks, I noticed, and I made Amy Parsons a co-host, our liaison to the Select Board. So if I misspoke about the voting, she can pop in and correct me. Amy, you have the ability to unmute and to turn your camera on too. But I'm sorry. So to your questions, I just wanted folks to know that she's here. And if I misspoke about something, she can fix that.
Great.
No, you got it right.
Thank you for being here, Amy. Also, that
You're
reminds
welcome.
me, Tara was accepted, but I think she's not made co-host yet. So if we could just unmute her and have her be able to show her video, that'd be great. Great. Thank you, Tara. I know you were there for most of that. You joined us just as we were getting going. Glad you're here. Okay, so we're going to open up for comments and questions for Annie around the budget presentation. Paul.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Chris, for the presentation as usual. Impressed with the visuals this time. They're getting better and better. That actually makes it really helpful to see. So help me understand school choice. Maybe help the public understand. So on the face of it, it looks like we have a lot of money for school choice. And so why do we need the override? Can't we just use what's in school choice to help cover any deficit from the town?
So I'm also going to enlist Chris on this question, because he has done such a thorough analysis of what school choice is currently allocated for. I will give a very brief overview of that School choice, remember in our capital plan, many of the projects that we have various funding streams that we say grant, town, capital, or school choice. A big chunk of projects, future projects that we've said we would fund with school choice. That's number one. And number two, Chris probably knows these off the top of his head, the number of things that break down in any given year, and that we just pay for, and then we don't ask the town to pay for. And Chris, hit it. Like, you know, all these, you have a whole Excel spreadsheet of them.
It's an Excel spreadsheet in my head, I guess. But yes, Anna's right with that. We just recently had our oil lines, for example, in both schools. The oil lines deteriorated and we're not feeding our boilers with oil. So we had to get those repaired. I mean, that cost us over $30,000. We had to replace the lines from the underground tanks to the boilers in both buildings. Again, that's just the kind of item that we need to have that little, for lack of a better term, piggy bank of school choice to be able to say, okay, normally this would be catastrophic for a school district's budget, but we are able to cover it, with school choice. We've had water heaters go, a $75,000 dishwasher at Hopkins a couple of years ago. All of that we normally would have to go to the town and say, hey, listen, we can't not have these items in a school. We need them funded. We've been able to pay for just out of the school choice money. So, it certainly has been very helpful as far as that goes. And the other part of it is that we, for the past few years, have been spending more school choice to balance the budget than we've been taking in. So that's something that we can't continue. We've been, keeping it close where we're not totally wiping out the fund, but at the same time, we're looking at a $700,000 shortfall this year. We can't just fund that with school choice because the following fiscal year, we just won't have enough to cover this. So we're always looking 2 to 3 years down the road. Even though we're talking about the FY27 budget, we projected into 28 and 29 as well, just to make sure that we're not depleting the fund where we wouldn't have enough to balance the budget those years.
And also connected to this, that I think it's important for taxpayers to understand, because that's a great question. I think people would ask that. Why would we need any additional help with an override? At the last meeting, the recommendation between FinCom and the select board, and ultimately I do believe it is the select board's decision. So I believe the recommendation was in one override scenario, 590,000 to the schools. If the schools even were to receive, FinCom had recommended $640,000 go to the school as part of an $850,000 override. Even if $640,000 were restored, and certainly I would be extraordinarily grateful, so don't hear me as anything but that actually would restore local contribution to roughly just slightly higher than FY24 levels. So even with that 640,000, local contribution would be about 7, so more closer to FY25, my apologies, would be roughly 7.8 million, not FY24, FY25. And it was 7.9 million in FY25, so what the town gave. So even with that restoration, it is still less than what the town was contributing to the schools 2 fiscal years ago.
I need to point Paul's question about school choice and what kinds of things that funds. What about if there's someone who moves to the town that needs some kind of special education services or out of district placement? How is that handled?
So school choice could certainly assist us with that, with unforeseen immediate expenses. Circuit breaker also helps with that. Circuit breaker is a different pot of money, which again, not to overcomplicate it, because the Department of Ed overcomplicates everything, but the school department pays, let's say roughly, I'm going to say $50,000, Chris, I could be wrong on this now, but let's say the floor is $50,000 before circuit breaker kicks in. And then once you hit that amount for any one student, you would then receive 75 cents on every dollar you spend above that amount. But circuit breaker is a trailing reimbursement. Am I correct in that, Chris? So Chris is gonna submit with Celia, it's an arduous task, all the information to get all this circuit breaker, which is one of the things that actually helped us in this budget, is Chris noticed something that was off with that and went after the state, and we ended up with more circuit breaker money. He'll submit that at the end of this year for the expenses for this year. We can carry that money over. So circuit breaker can help with unexpected expenses. We make an excellent point, Humira. That happens in the moment, circuit breaker reimbursement trails, and school choice is something that right away, we have those reserves available.
Thank you. Kara?
In the smoke light, I'm sorry, I'm got a little bit of laryngitis. In a similar light, Annie, when you went over the slide about charter school and charter school tuition and the cost savings over the year, can you kind of explain what that means? Somebody kind of looking at that slide quick might say, oh, good, the school can give back $220,000 to the town. Can you just explain a little bit more about the breakdown of that slide and how the money is transferred one way or the other, depending on?
Sure. So charter and choice live on, it's a town expense. That's not our choice. That's not a local policy decision. In every single municipality, the state charges the municipality or the town for charter tuitions and for choice tuitions. As a matter of fact, in the majority, if not all towns, Chapter 74 or vocational tuitions are also paid on the town side. In our town, the school department pays its Chapter 74 tuitions. Most places, the town pays that. But in all towns, charter and choice tuitions are something that the town pays. What happens every year right now when they're doing the budgeting and the governor does a cherry sheet and the Senate and the House, what they do is they just look at whatever the town paid last year in charter tuitions. They just carry that amount over because they don't get individual student data. They don't have access to that. So they carried that amount over and they said, all right, the town of Hadley, it looks like they paid close to 800 grand in fiscal year 25. So in fiscal year 26, we're going to tell them on their cherry sheet, they should be ready to pay $820,000. And when the actual number of students in charter schools decreases, then what the town will actually pay this year is $600,000. So there's no money to give back, but the town in its fiscal year 26 budget, not in our budget, but in the town's budget book, I don't know, wherever charter tuition lives, charter tuition would have reflected what was on that cherry sheet. And now what they're actually going to pay is less. So that's cost avoidance. So it's an excellent question. It isn't money. Not that we wouldn't give it back. We couldn't give it back. It doesn't go to us. It's a cost avoidance, though. It isn't even like they're going to get an infusion of cash. And I'm sure, I want to make clear in case people say, then start calling the select board and saying, oh my gosh, Mackenzie said you guys have $250,000 laying around. Remember that health insurance, that unforeseen, unprecedented, I have no doubt that 220 was gone before it came back, just in the health insurance increases. But it's an excellent question. And with choice out, I would say with choice out, similarly, the town pays, and it's the same thing. The cherry sheet, the governor looks at last year, how many kids were out, and just carries that over. This slide, I thought I recycled it this time, and I didn't. But Chris and I had a slide in our last presentation where we showed that comparing Hadley, and I did this by design, South Hadley, we're both in Hampshire County, but we both have charter schools in our geographic boundaries. We actually have 2 campuses within our geographic boundaries and a charter school in a neighboring district. So, they have one in their boundaries that's our neighbor. And I pointed out to you all that in the last 5 fiscal years, we were the only town in Hampshire County that saw a net decrease. And this is, again, a town bill, a net decrease in charter and choice tuitions out. Only town that saw that. And by comparison, it was about $100,000 net decrease between what they were paying in charter choice out in Hadley in fiscal year 22 versus fiscal year 26. But by comparison, in South Hadley, that actually is increased by $930,000 in the same time period. And this goes to the importance of ensuring that schools are adequately funded. So if people start pouring out and leaving, that bill goes to the town side. So it's always a strategic balance. Thanks for that question. Pam Haig is also here, who's our liaison, I believe, from Finance Committee. So I'm letting her in too and setting her up.
Wonderful.
Can I ask one follow-up question to kind of close the loop on everything, Annie? And I guess it's a two-part question. Since you've kind of gone through school of choice and charter, can you kind of wrap it up and what vocational looks like? And then just if you have a ballpark idea, or Chris, of the cost per pupil for each of those scenarios.
Sure. So we were looking at a steady decline of, and I'll tell you, people don't have it in front of them, but there is a chart in the budget book on page 16 in the actual book. We were seeing a steady decline. On fiscal year 19, we had 35 students going out to vocational campuses, and that had decreased to 13 in fiscal year 25. And then we saw an uptick this year with a total enrollment of 22 this year. We don't have our final numbers yet for fiscal year 27. We don't see the same bubble that we saw last year for incoming ninth graders. We're hoping, and certainly I support whatever any families choose, whatever any child chooses. We wanted to make sure that students didn't feel as though they had to choose a vocational technical high school because there weren't enough options available at Hopkins. So we have, as you know, invested very intentionally in innovation career pathways, in all kinds of career opportunities and internship opportunities for students. The per pupil tuition at Smith Folk, I think, is right around $23K, but I'm sure Chris knows the exact amount this year.
It's 22,633 per student.
See, I'm a rounder. He is not. So yes, that does not include supplemental charges for students with IEPs, and that doesn't include transportation.
Additional questions for Annie or Chris?
Sorry, I have one more question.
Yes.
Cost of the average student, and I understand that supplemental based on IEPs and whatever special needs they may have. Cost of an average student in Hadley Public Schools.
So I would describe it as the most up-to-date information that we have that's publicly available right now, although maybe they've published FY 25. Does that seem right, Chris? Maybe they have, because the end of years for FY 25, maybe they haven't. So it's in FY 24, Hadley Public Schools was spending, sorry, I have it's page 20 in the budget book. It was spending roughly $25,000 per pupil. And in Hampshire County, the district in FY 24 that was spending the least amount per pupil was East Hampton at roughly $17,000. And the highest was Amherst at $31,000. And the reason it lags, if people are wondering, what, don't they know exactly what that is? Chris and I like to use publicly available data that people can find very easily on their own. At the end of the fiscal year, so at the end of last fiscal year, FY 25, by October, Chris has to submit a really involved report that he has to communicate with the town about. And that's the end of year report. And that's why it lags. So that end of year report, it's actually the Department of Ed who publishes these numbers. We don't come up with these numbers. They look at our financial reporting. What did we spend in every single category? What do we spend on people? What do we spend on materials, on supplies? And then they divide all of those expenditures by enrollment. And that's how they come up with that figure. So it isn't, I don't want people thinking, because then often people say, well, wait a minute, in school choice, they're only getting $5,000 and it costs $25,000. Don't think of it that way. It isn't, Chris and I are writing a check. Okay, here's another kid, $25,000. That's not how that works. They take the total budget, they divide it by the total number of pupils that you have. And as we've talked before with school choice, the many of those costs, whether we have school choice students or we don't, I still have a school psych. Right. So I still have, there are things that, but when we have school choice, then we have additional funding to help pay for personnel and services that we would pay for regardless. Well,
How are we looking for 2027 for school choice?
we have, hold on, I wrote this down before I came here. So we received a total of, oh my gosh, this is, we received so far, although I think we had a couple additional applications today, but I believe so far we've received 126 applications. And we have accepted, but people do not, they may change their mind. So us accepting them doesn't mean that they may have put in many school choice applications, but we've accepted 112.
Is
That's
that,
K through 12.
and if we have 146 this year,
Some
that
students
means
graduate, and some other students may leave because they're at critical juncture points, right? They may go to a different kind of school, a charter school or a Vogue school next year.
but those 112 are additional to the current
If they
146.
correct. Yes.
If they come.
If they come to the district, that is correct.
So that's potentially if they come.
If they come.
Is how does that number of applicants compare to previous years?
Oh, it's much higher. I mean, this is a direct result. I will say, a lot of these applications, we were inundated immediately after some failed override votes in surrounding communities. We are doing something, I'm really excited about this. Miss Camuso is having an admissions day for Hopkins Academy for new school choice families and students. So that'll be on a Saturday in June, that kind of a welcome to the Hopkins and to Hadley.
I see your hand, Christine, and before we move off of this point, Annie, you mentioned failed overrides and what that triggers in a community. From my vantage point at the Massachusetts Association of School Committees board and Division 5 chair, I see a lot of communities in our surrounding area struggling. They're in that situation. And I think that the marketplace for school choice seats is going to be very competitive. I think that we are in the most competitive position because of our offerings. And we've been working at this for a while now. This has been a very intentional effort that Annie, you and your colleagues in the administration have been leading, and it's paid off, I think, really nicely for us. But we're also still a small and rural school. And if you look at other small and rural schools who are in the same fiscal crisis, we're blessed with an abundance of programs and educators willing to manage those programs, which allows us to get in those school choice families. And I think that being a revenue center, that's the single most important thing that we have to consider is holding on to that advantage, an advantage that we didn't know would be as important as it is this year. But it is crucial that we hold on to that because it could be so easy to be in the same situation as some of our other rural schools colleagues who I am advocating for at the state level and trying to help. And I think those efforts can pay off for Hadley as well. But we are in so much more a blessed position, and we just have to maintain that advantage. And I know Christine Pipp had her hand up, but I'm going to call on Amy. Amy, can you video unmute as well? We'd welcome your presence.
Oh, sorry.
No worries at all.
Let me turn it back over here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm walking my sheep. I did have a question in regards to the school choice. You had indicated before that sometimes like we accept a whole bunch of students and potentially they could not come. And is there like an option in the fall, if, once the students are already enrolled and school has started, to accept new students? Or is that something, I guess kind of the process with that, because I think someone might ask, well, these students didn't come, or are we missing out on potential school choice money, something like that?
That's a great question. I have to say, I so love the fact that you're walking your sheep. Everybody who watches this, if everything we've said about our schools doesn't convince families who are thinking about choosing Hadley Public Schools, that is why you want to choose Hadley Public Schools. Because our select board members walk their sheep when they're at meetings. So yes, Amy, what happens, that's a great question, is that once a grade is full, so let's say we've accepted and students have, and I don't even know which grades now we're waitlisting, but once a grade is full because the students have applied and said I'm coming, well, if for some reason they don't come, then we're back to, okay, the grade has openings. If we have a wait list, then we just go down the wait list. And I think we have to re-lottery on the wait list because you don't get order. I think we have to re-lottery. I'd have to check the law on that. On who's waitlisted. If there is there's like at Hopkins, we will probably still have openings. So people should not feel like, oh, that's it. You had one chance in the spring. We have folks come and apply at all different times.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks for the question, Amy. Other questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. I feel like you guys hit all the high notes, and I'm happy to be here and to be having this conversation. I just, in addition to all the work that I know the town is doing on this, I just want to applaud you, Annie and Chris, with all the work that I know you guys have been doing, because I know, what we're going to vote on tonight is hopefully not what the outcome is, and I know we're gonna be able to do something down the road if the override does pass. But I know you guys have put a lot of thought into this, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. We're happy to do it. And I'll say again, the select board and the FinCom, Pam and Amy and others. Yes, Chris has worked his tail off. I'd like to think that I've contributed something to that. But the other folks that are also trying to work this out, including all of you, are volunteers that are doing this because you care about the town. You want opportunities for kids, and you also want a strong community. So thank you for that, Ethan. But I really want to applaud all of the elected and appointed volunteers and all the folks who are showing up at meetings and helping the elected officials and appointed people make good decisions. So thanks for that. And I would ask if the school committee would like that you vote again on that total amount. Normally you vote local contribution, but vote on that total amount. You can drop the 22 cents. My feelings won't be hurt.
All right. Well, let me just make sure that there are no other comments or questions or thoughts that we'd like to share with the public about this budget presentation and the ask and the request before we take a vote. I think there is one thing that I think would be helpful as we vote this. We could vote on it afterwards or before, I'm not sure, but I know that there's like $2 amounts that the select board is putting forward. And I know that there's some confusion about like if the first one isn't passed, then the second one is definitely not even a possibility. The first one has to pass, and then the second one is an additional amount to make us whole. I've been thinking about it a certain way, and I want to test this by you, Amy. I've been thinking about it as would you like one scoop or two? Because you can't have your second scoop without the first one. And they might not be of equal size, but it's an additive thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's absolutely correct. So if you want the full override for the 1.5, you also have to vote for the smaller amount as well, the 850. So it's like a cumulative type of thing.
Yes.
There'll be a question, I believe, although I also encourage people to go to the public forum on Wednesday. FinCom and Select Board are having another public forum this Wednesday, and I believe it's hybrid, so people can go in person or on Zoom. That there's a 850 amount and then a supplemental, to your point, Humira, that there's that first scoop of ice cream. I also really appreciate that we have ice cream analogies here in Hadley, the Valley of Ice Cream. Another reason to come here. And then a second supplemental, I believe, of 650, which is what those two together would get to 1.5 million.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, and we had to word it that way because we didn't want to have, you know, the 850 and then the 1.5 and people thinking, oh my gosh, we're back up to the 2.2. But, you know, it's not one or the other. It's the 850 has to pass. And then on top of that would be the additional 650.
Right.
I don't know anybody who doesn't want 2 scoops of ice cream.
That's what I think that's an analogy I think people could get behind. I think we need both scoops in order to remain whole as a community. So please help us get to both. I wonder also, Pam, I know you and the work of the finance team has been really essential to helping us arrive at this recommendation. And I wonder if you want to add anything to our thinking before we vote on this. It's possible that Pam has stepped away.
She might have had to step away, or she might be having some audio problems. So
Right. All right. We will keep going then. Any final comments before we take a vote on this budget amount? Okay, seeing none. Do I hear a motion to approve the 10,368,791.22 budget for next year?
So moved.
Thank you, Ethan.
seconded.
All right. Thank you, Tara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. And Christine, I did not hear your aye. I just want to make sure I get it and that it's a unanimous approval.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for this discussion. Annie and Chris, please keep us informed on next steps and ways we can get the word out that people need to come to not just the town meeting, but also need to come out and vote for this. Yeah, what are those dates again? Actually, it would be helpful to say that out loud.
I believe ATM is May 7th, Thursday, May 7th at Hopkins Academy at 7 p.m. I believe there will be childcare available, but please give a heads up to the PTO about that because there'll be some registration that they would appreciate knowing. And I believe the ballot is June 2nd. Is that correct, Amy? It's June 2nd.
Yep.
Not to be confused, there is still a ballot that will happen on May 17th. That's for town positions.
Right. Annual town election. Yep.
Annual town elections.
Mhm.
So that will happen, but June 2nd is the override vote. It's a separate ballot.
And does there need to be a certain number of votes that we need to hit in order to have it pass?
I believe it's a simple majority on town meeting and the ballot, but I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong.
No, you're right.
Simple majority.
Okay.
Simple majority of those who vote. So
all right.
they can't hold town meeting without a quorum. I forget what the quorum is in this town. Once they hit quorum, they can have town meeting.
I want to say it was like 120. Maybe it's just over 100.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what could make or break this next effort would be getting parents and the parent community out to know what the situation is and to know about those dates and encourage their attendance. And I welcome any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions on ways to get that word out. I know that there are several parents already working on this. I know our educators are not allowed to do that we really want to make sure our educators know that they're not allowed to do that during their work hours. But we're really excited to have anyone and everyone's help in getting the word out to everyone about this, but especially the parent community. They should know what's at stake.
Can I just add,
Right.
Humira?
Yes.
I just pulled it up on Facebook and it is posted that if you do seek childcare, there is a registration to put your name in for, and that closes. They're asking for registration by May 5th for that, and it is online on Facebook. It's being shared widely. I see Ethan and I just shared that as well, but if parents don't have access to Facebook and need help, then I'd be happy to help get people that information that they need to sign up.
Thank you for doing that, Tara. And Tara's email is on the school website. Feel free to reach out and she will help you gain access to that. Thank you. All right. Anything else on the topic of budget or town meeting overrides? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the next item of the agenda. Thank you, Amy and Pam, for being here.
You're welcome.
Let's continue to the approval of the locker room bid. Chris.
Okay, so we did go out to bid about a month or so ago for the locker room project, and it was pretty good, actually. We got a number of bids for the subcontractors, and how it works is the subcontractors bid first, and they are allowed to list general contractors that they're not willing to work with. It might have been that they just had some issues with them or something. And then after that, the general contractors bid and they select typically the lowest cost subcontractors that they're going to work with. Fortunately, in this instance, there were no subcontractors that listed the low general contractor bidder as someone they would not want to work with. So that worked out well. I did include in your meeting package a listing of the winning bidder, who is, I'm sorry, I just have to open it up, Serrano and Serrano Construction. And they came in just about with the amount of money that we have for the project. So that worked out quite well, actually a hair lower than what we have. So I was very happy to see that. You never know how a bid's going to turn out, especially with the way construction costs have gone. So this was very fortunate. And I had a call with them last Thursday morning with them and the designers. We just went through a few things and I told them that this would be voted on at tonight's meeting, and I would let them know right after the vote, if it was approved or not. So that way they can begin ordering materials. So, any kind of lag time for them, they would order those items first, and hopefully we would avoid any delays on the project. So that's basically, all the information. I mean, a lot of it's boring about certification and do they have workers' comp and all of that stuff. But as you can see by the paper, it does come in at $942,000, and that is the low bid amount. We're required to use the lower bid unless anybody has any reason why we would reject it altogether. But I'm looking for your approval on this tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments for Chris on this?
I need to see it moving forward. Good.
Definitely.
Yes,
Long time coming. Yes.
Yes, remind us, when was this approved by the town?
It was at least 2 years ago. We couldn't do it last year because the designers weren't done with the design work. So we just, obviously you can't go out to bid with no design. So I believe it was the year before that it was approved. So FY24.
Right. Okay, very good. And just for the viewing public who might be thinking, wait a second, we're going to still move forward with this in light of needing money for next year. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. So this money was approved, as I said, 2 years ago. They basically avoid, and I'm not sure, I don't remember if it was a borrowing article, but I believe it was. Obviously, they're going to avoid borrowing until the funds are needed. But of course, they are aware that they will be borrowing it, so they have that in their schedule of borrowings upcoming. And I go back and forth often with Linda for items like this, and I will tell her we're not going to need this money until July 1st. So, in that way, we're not borrowing the money until we need it. The same with the stage project where we got the check from that generous donator, and I told Linda we're not starting this until the summer, so put it in a high yielding account, and it can sit there for a few months and earn some interest for the town rather than than thinking you're going to have to need it earlier. So we have that good back and forth discussion always with these items, and that way it saves the town money and interest in the end, or in the stage case, earns the town a little extra money in interest. So that's basically how it'll work. They will go out, to borrow probably a little before the project starts at the end of the school year. The good thing about this is that the rates have come down in the last couple of years, so they'll be able to get a preferred borrowing rate versus what they would have gotten 2 years ago. So although we hated really to wait to get this locker room done, on the other side, there's the silver lining is they'll get a lower interest rate. So that's a good thing.
Lower rate, and the project came in just a hair under what we thought it would. So we're winning as far as
Yes.
terrific. Any other questions about this locker room bid?
I just wanted to, Chris, you kind of referenced this, but the plan is still to start this project at the end of the school year, correct?
I told them the last day is the 22nd of June, and I'd love to see them in here on the 23rd. Yes.
Awesome. Great.
That's great news. All right, great. Seeing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the locker room bid as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Ethan.
Seconded.
Thank you, Tara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll just ask Christine again. Just want to make sure you get your aye in, Christine. It's possible you stepped away. I'll get her aye when she comes back.
We can return to, yeah.
Yes. All right. Terrific. Let's move next to the superintendent update.
Just one thing I want, people can look at that at their leisure, but one thing that isn't on there, which I'll put on there for next week, this Thursday, Principal Camuso and Senior Sarim Chowdhury, they were invited, which I did let Select Board and FinCom know this as well, and all of School Committee. They've been invited to be a part of a panel discussion at UMass Amherst. I think it's the School of Public Policy on artificial intelligence. So next month, School Committee, you're going to see some amazing work that our Hopkins teachers put together themselves on a framework for what does it mean to develop AI competencies for a graduate of Hopkins Academy. But just want to put that on, it's open to the public. I think you have to register if you're interested in attending the talk. I'll be there. It's Thursday evening. You can probably find it on UMass's website.
Terrific. Thank you for that. So glad that we're taking a leadership position there. All right. Any questions for Annie on the superintendent updates? Okay. We're gonna
Is it okay, Humira? Might I suggest, even if it's she might return to it, but in case Christine had to deal with something in her home, do you want to do a roll call in the locker room vote? And even if it registers as just who's here, that's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we don't so you had a first and a second, Ethan, Tara, and then I didn't get.
So roll call would be Paul, Ethan,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Humira, I, Christine. All right.
Okay.
We just wanted to hear Tara say that again.
I was, where this is,
It's like getting worse as the night goes on.
just raise our hand from here on out. Just,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Thank you for hanging it there, Tara. Okay, so moving on to action items, I just want to make sure that have all the votes that we need. We've approved, we voted on the budget, the locker room bid. We need to approve the minutes of March 23rd, 2026. Do I hear a motion?
so moved.
Thank you, Ethan.
Seconded.
Thank you, Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, terrific. We are going to approve the payroll and warrants for fiscal year 2026. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now for school committee updates and general announcements. Tara, feel free to make it brief. CPAC and CES.
No CES update. CPAC, Annie has attached their flyer for April. If you haven't looked, take a look. You'll see that it highlights the role of our very own Michelle Wojtowicz. It's a great meeting that takes place every month.
Thank you. Moving on to finance, that was mostly the topic of this evening. And thank you, Annie and Chris, for linking the select board and FinCom meetings in our document here. No other update aside from that. Item C, the ESCO biweekly meeting notes and common finance options are listed here. Paul, would love to hear from you on that.
You didn't meet last week, and I was absent last school committee meeting. So, is there anything, Annie, Chris, that we need to update folks on?
No, I think we're just waiting to hear about whether or not we get the Green School Works grant. This
Yeah.
is in place. I want to thank Amy Parsons as our select board liaison. She has also been attending the biweekly meetings with Train. So I think probably at our next school committee meeting, we will be able to show people the kind of energy conservation measures calculator to see which ECMs are most cost effective, I think. So that'll be ready for
Energy conservation measures, ECMs. When do we hear from the Greenworks room? Do we know?
Oh, Chris, do you know when they're going to tell us? They keep asking us
They
questions.
keep asking
She
questions.
said mid-May.
Their website says May, if that helps, but that, yeah, you're right there.
Is a great idea. That is what we should have done, is just look at the website. Because they're trying to remember what they said. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving next to capital. Christine. Also, I think, Annie, you were at the last capital committee meeting. Can you chime in there?
Yes, the capital committee supported our request. So on the warrant, folks will see, oh goodness, I just had a complete brain lapse of what's on the warrant. Chris, it's two things. What just happened to my head? What did we ask
School
for?
bus stop arm cameras
Thank you.
and the replacement of the blinds at Hopkins Academy.
Worse. That's all I've been talking about. It just went right out of my head. So yes, for a combined total, I think of roughly about $130,000-ish for both, I believe, right around there. But those are the two items. The Capital Committee supported that. And there's a link to the meeting there if folks want to look at it in the agenda, that meeting.
Great, thank you. Policy, Ethan?
Nothing to report on this month.
Thank you. And anyone who'd like to make any general announcements? All right, seeing none, let's talk about the next meeting dates. Let's see, what is the fourth? The fourth Monday in May is Memorial Day.
That's why there's nothing on there. That's
Okay, can we have a quick conversation about an alternate timeframe?
Sure.
All right, so let's look at the Monday prior, which is Monday the 18th. Any chance that we might be able to make a quorum happen on that day? Okay,
It'd be good, right? Because of the town meeting. Yeah.
That works for me.
okay. Annie and Chris, you too? All right, let's make it so. Annie, thank you for sending out a calendar invite for them.
That was
Um,
easy.
That was,
May 18th. School
that's
committee.
right, Monday, May 18th. Will there be a policy meeting beforehand?
That could happen. I've been totally focused on the budget. This has nothing to do with Ethan and Chris. They are eager to do it, but
Eager.
eager.
Okay.
So
All right.
I'm just letting you live on the edge. Just
Yes.
All right. Well, why don't we say that we will definitely be having a school committee meeting. The May 2026 meeting will be Monday, May 18th at 5:30 p.m. There may be a policy meeting that takes place in the hour preceding. We'll be posting about both, so stay tuned. And I think that's a wrap at 6:39. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.